with inscripted in the back the date and who, where we were. And he bought it, I think, for the price of $5,000 and gave it to me. I mean, that's how great a friend he's been to us. So he's collected for many, many years. And we've authenticated, by the way, the pieces.
Did he know?
At 79 years old, Priscilla Presley just dropped a bombshell that's about to rewrite everything you thought you knew about one of the most famous divorces in entertainment history. After 47 years of silence, she's finally revealing what Elvis actually said to her in those final moments before their marriage ended. And trust me, it's nothing like what the world has been told. For decades, the story seems so simple, so clean. The king of rock and roll and his beautiful wife grew apart. Fame got in the way. They fell out of love. End of story. The tabloids painted it as just another Hollywood casualty, another marriage that couldn't survive the spotlight. But what Priscilla just revealed changes absolutely everything. She's been carrying a secret for nearly half a century, a secret so devastating, so personal, that she's never breathed a word of it to anyone, not to Barbara Walters, not to Oprah, not even to her closest friends. But now, at 79, something has shifted. Maybe it's age, maybe it's wisdom, or maybe she's just tired of living with the weight of what really happened. Here's what's going to shock you. Their divorce wasn't about falling out of love. It wasn't about Elvis's affairs or his career consuming their relationship. It wasn't even about the drugs, though God knows they played their part. No, what ended their marriage was something far more sinister, breaking than anyone could have imagined. Elvis didn't let her go. He didn't gracefully accept that their love story was over. Instead, in those final days, he made her a promise so twisted, so desperate, that it revealed just how far the man she'd loved had fallen. And when she refused to accept that promise, when she stood her ground for the first time in their entire relationship, he said something to her that she's never been able to forget. Think about this for a moment. Priscilla Presley has spent 47 years being asked about Elvis. 47 years of interviews, documentaries, and specials. She's written books. She's shared intimate details about their life together. She's opened up about his struggles with addiction and fame. But this one thing, she's kept it locked away like it was too dangerous to ever let out. What could Elvis Presley have possibly said to his wife that was so devastating, so shocking, that she's carried it in silence for nearly 5 decades? What words could have been so powerful that they've shaped every decision she's made since that day? The woman who once stood by Elvis's side through his highest highs and lowest lows, who raised his daughter and preserved his legacy, who spent her entire adult life being defined by their relationship, has been hiding the most important part of their story. The part that explains everything. Because here's what nobody understood back then, and what most people still don't understand now. Priscilla didn't leave Elvis because she stopped loving him. She's admitted that herself, tears in her eyes, voice breaking. She left because she finally realized that the man she'd fallen in love with as a 14-year-old girl was gone. Completely gone. And what was left behind was someone she didn't recognize. But it was Elvis's final words to her, his last desperate attempt to keep her, that showed her just how far he'd spiraled. These weren't words of love or regret. They weren't pleas for forgiveness or promises to change. No. What Elvis said to Priscilla in those final moments was something so shocking, so out of character for the man the world thought they knew, that it's taken her 47 years to find the courage to speak it out loud. And when you hear what he actually said, when you understand the real reason their marriage ended, you're going to realize that everything you thought you knew about Elvis and Priscilla's love story was carefully constructed fiction. The truth is darker, more complicated, and more heartbreaking than anyone ever imagined. What drove Priscilla to finally break her silence after all these years? What did Elvis say that was so powerful it's haunted her for nearly half a century? And why is she choosing now, at 79, to finally tell the world what really happened behind the golden gates of Graceland? The answer is going to change everything you thought you knew about the king of rock and roll. To understand what Elvis said that shattered Priscilla so completely, you need to know what was really happening behind closed doors at Graceland in those final years. And I'm warning you right now, this isn't the sanitized version you've heard before. This is the truth that Priscilla has kept buried for decades. By the early 70s, Elvis wasn't just struggling with fame or the pressures of stardom. He was drowning in prescription drugs, and it was turning him into someone completely unrecognizable. We're not talking about recreational use here. We're talking about a man who was consuming dangerous cocktails of pills that were destroying his mind and his ability to think rationally. But here's what nobody talks about. The drugs didn't just make Elvis erratic or unpredictable. They made him paranoid, controlling, and increasingly violent. Priscilla has hinted at this over the years, but she's never told the full truth about how bad it really got. How there were nights when she had to lock herself and baby Lisa Marie in their bedroom because Elvis was in such a rage that she genuinely feared for their safety. The man who had once been gentle and protective had become someone who saw threats everywhere. He was convinced that Priscilla was plotting against him, that she was talking to reporters, that she was planning to leave him and take Lisa Marie away, and his response to these paranoid delusions was to tighten his control over every aspect of her life. Priscilla couldn't leave Graceland without permission. She couldn't make phone calls without Elvis listening in. She couldn't even take Lisa Marie to the park without one of Elvis's bodyguards following them. But the worst part, the part that broke her spirit completely, was what Elvis started demanding she do to prove her loyalty. He wanted her to cut ties with her family, her parents, her siblings, everyone who had been part of her life before Elvis. He was convinced they were poisoning her against him, filling her head with ideas about independence and freedom. And when she refused, when she tried to explain that she needed her family, especially now that she was a mother, Elvis exploded. The fights became more frequent, more intense, and more dangerous. There were nights when Elvis would disappear for days, only to return in a drug-fueled, paranoid state, accusing Priscilla of everything from infidelity to plotting his downfall. And the most terrifying part was that he genuinely believed these accusations. The drugs had warped his reality so completely that he couldn't tell the difference between his paranoid fantasies and the truth. But it was what Elvis started demanding of Lisa Marie that finally pushed Priscilla to her breaking point. He didn't just want to control Priscilla anymore, he wanted to control their daughter too. He started talking about homeschooling Lisa Marie at Graceland, never letting her leave the property, raising her in complete isolation from the outside world. When Priscilla tried to object, when she explained that Lisa Marie needed to socialize with other children, needed to experience life beyond the walls of Graceland, Elvis's response was chilling. He told her that if she really loved him, if she was really loyal to him, she would understand that the outside world was dangerous, that the only way to keep their family safe was to keep them isolated under his complete control. This wasn't love anymore. This wasn't even recognizable as the man she had married. This was something else entirely, something dark and possessive and frightening. And Priscilla realized that if she stayed, if she continued to enable this behavior, she wouldn't just be destroying her own life. She would be destroying Lisa Marie's childhood, maybe even putting their daughter in real danger. The breaking point came when Elvis made one final impossible demand, a demand so outrageous, so completely divorced from reality, that Priscilla knew she had no choice but to leave. Because what Elvis wanted from her wasn't just loyalty or obedience. What he wanted was something that would have required her to stop being a mother entirely. And that's when she knew that the man she had loved was truly gone forever. What I'm about to tell you happened on a Tuesday morning in February of 1973. Priscilla remembers the date exactly because it was the day her marriage to Elvis Presley officially died, even though they wouldn't sign the divorce papers for months. Elvis had been on a 3-day bender, fueled by a cocktail of prescription drugs that had him swinging between manic energy and paranoid rage. Priscilla had kept Lisa Marie away from him during these episodes, but this time was different. This time, When Elvis finally came down from his high, he didn't apologize or promise to get help like he usually did. Instead, he called Priscilla into his study and made a demand that showed her just how far gone he really was. He wanted her to send Lisa Marie away, permanently. Not to boarding school, not to stay with relatives for a while. Elvis wanted Priscilla to give up their daughter completely, to send her to live with his manager Colonel Parker's family, where she would be raised as their own child. And his reasoning was so twisted, so completely detached from reality, that Priscilla knew she was talking to a stranger. Elvis told her that Lisa Marie was getting in the way of their marriage, that Priscilla was spending too much time being a mother and not enough time being his wife. He was convinced that if they could just go back to how things were before Lisa Marie was born, back to when it was just the two of them, everything would be perfect again. But here's the most chilling part. Elvis genuinely believed this was a reasonable request. In his drug-addled mind, he thought he was saving their marriage. He thought he was being generous by finding Lisa Marie a good home, instead of just demanding that Priscilla ignore their daughter completely. When Priscilla refused, when she told him that she would never ever give up her child, Elvis's reaction was immediate and terrifying. He didn't yell or throw things like he usually did. Instead, he became eerily calm, and that's when Priscilla knew she was in real danger. Elvis looked at her with cold, dead eyes and said something that still gives her nightmares 47 years later. He told her that if she wasn't willing to choose him over Lisa Marie, then she obviously didn't love him the way he loved her. And if she didn't love him enough to make that sacrifice, then maybe she didn't deserve to be Lisa Marie's mother at all. The threat was crystal clear. Elvis was telling her that if she didn't give up their daughter voluntarily, he would find a way to take Lisa Marie away from her. He had the money, the power, the connections. And in 1973, courts almost always sided with fathers, especially famous wealthy fathers. But it was what Elvis said next that broke Priscilla's heart completely and showed her that the man she had loved was truly gone forever. He told her that he had already talked to Colonel Parker about it, that they had already made arrangements for Lisa Marie to be taken care of, that all Priscilla had to do was sign some papers, and their daughter would disappear from their lives as if she had never existed. This wasn't a moment of drug-fueled madness. This was premeditated. Elvis had been planning this, discussing it with other people, making arrangements behind her back. He was willing to destroy their daughter's life to get what he wanted. And that's when Priscilla realized that she wasn't just married to an addict or a controlling husband. She was married to someone who was capable of anything, someone who would use their own child as a weapon to get his way. The conversation that followed was brief but devastating. Priscilla told Elvis that she would never give up Lisa Marie, that she would fight him with everything she had if he tried to take their daughter away. And Elvis, with that same cold, dead stare, told her that if that's how she felt, then she could leave. But if she left, she would leave alone. Those were his exact words. "You can leave, but you'll leave alone." It was an ultimatum. Choose him, give up Lisa Marie, and stay married to the king of rock and roll. Or choose their daughter and lose everything else. For Priscilla, it wasn't even a choice. So why is Priscilla Presley finally breaking her silence now at 79 years old? Why reveal this devastating truth after keeping it buried for 47 years? The answer is going to shock you, because it's not what you think. Priscilla isn't speaking out for revenge or to damage Elvis's legacy. She's speaking out because she's finally ready to admit something she's never been able to face before. Something that's shaped every relationship she's had since that terrible day in February of 1973. Here's the bombshell that's going to change everything you thought you knew about their story. Elvis's final words to her weren't just a threat or an ultimatum. They were a promise so twisted, so manipulative, that it's taken Priscilla nearly 5 decades to understand what he was really saying. After she chose Lisa Marie over him, after she made it clear that she would never abandon their daughter, Elvis didn't explode with rage like she expected. Instead, he became calm again, almost eerily peaceful. And that's when he said the words that have haunted her every single day since. Elvis looked at her with those cold, dead eyes and said, "You'll be back, Priscilla. You'll always come back to me. Because no matter who you meet, no matter who you think you love, you'll never find what we had. And when you realize that, when you're old and alone, and you've wasted your whole life looking for something that doesn't exist, you'll come crawling back. And maybe, if I'm feeling generous, I'll take you back." But here's the part that's going to break your heart. Elvis was right. Not about her coming back to him, but about her never finding love again. Because those words, that cruel prediction, became a self-fulfilling prophecy that destroyed every relationship Priscilla has had since their divorce. Think about it. Priscilla Presley was one of the most beautiful, most desirable women in the world. She could have had anyone. She dated some of the most successful, most attractive men in Hollywood. But she never remarried. She never found lasting love. And now, at 79, she's finally admitting why. Elvis's words planted a poison seed in her mind that grew and festered for decades. Every time she met someone new, every time she started to fall in love, she would hear Elvis's voice in her head, telling her that what they had was irreplaceable, that she was just wasting her time looking for something that didn't exist. And the most tragic part? She started to believe him. Not consciously, not deliberately, but deep down in places she didn't even want to acknowledge. Elvis's final words had convinced her that their toxic, destructive relationship was the greatest love she would ever know, that everything else was just a pale imitation of what she had lost. But here's what's really going to shock you. Priscilla isn't speaking out now because she's finally gotten over Elvis or because she's found peace with their story. She's speaking out because she's finally realized that Elvis's final promise wasn't just cruel. It was a lie designed to destroy her happiness forever. At 79, surrounded by her children and grandchildren, Priscilla has finally understood that what she and Elvis had wasn't the greatest love story ever told. It was an obsession, a destructive, possessive obsession that nearly destroyed her and definitely destroyed him. And Elvis knew it. Even in those final moments, drugged and paranoid and completely detached from reality, some part of him understood that if he couldn't have her, he could at least make sure she never truly belonged to anyone else. That's why she's speaking out now. Not for revenge, not for attention, but as a warning. To let the world know that sometimes the most dangerous words aren't threats or insults. Sometimes the most dangerous words are promises, wrapped in the illusion of love. Priscilla Presley spent 47 years believing that her marriage to Elvis was the defining relationship of her life. Now, at 79, she's finally ready to admit that it was just the beginning of her story, not the end of it. And maybe, just maybe, it's not too late for her to write a different ending. This story changes everything we thought we knew about Elvis and Priscilla's relationship, doesn't it? After 47 years of silence, Priscilla's bombshell revelation shows us that sometimes the most devastating words aren't spoken in anger, but in cold, calculated manipulation. What do you think about Elvis's final promise to Priscilla? Was it the desperate plea of a broken man, or something much darker? And do you believe Priscilla can finally break free from those haunting words after all these years? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because I read every single one, and this story has layers we're still uncovering. If this shocking revelation opened your eyes to the real story behind one of Hollywood's most famous marriages, smash that like button and hit subscribe with notifications on. Trust me, you won't want to miss what we're uncovering next about the secrets celebrities have kept buried for decades. The truth is always more complicated than the headlines.